Thanks for tuning in and watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. I'm shooting again outside once again because, well, it's beautiful out here. It's cold. It's about 60, yeah, thanks for the email message. It's 63 degrees and it's cloudy and it's threatening rain, but I still prefer, holy cow. Okay, you're not going to believe what I'm seeing out here. There's a skunk just a few feet away. We're going to capture that in the B-roll. Out of the corner of my eye, it really made me jump. Anyhow, let's get back to the camera news. I got a couple of things I want to talk to you about today. The data release for the R3, the Canon R3, and the Nikon Z9. So first of all, the R3. Now, you'll remember a couple of weeks ago, and I don't shy away from mistakes, that there was a rumor posted on Canon Rumors saying we were going to get the Canon R3 on June the 29th. Well, June the 30th came by, the 31st, the 32nd. No, basically, we went into July and there was nothing. So essentially, that rumor wasn't true. Well, Craig has come out with another update, and this time he says everything's all validated. So let me read you what Craig has on his site, Canon Rumors. This time, bearing any unknown catastrophe, I've received information from good sources that the Canon EOS R3 body will be announced in September 2021. Okay, so that seems like it's long off. That's September, right? Well, I don't know about you, but we're already in July, and it's July the 7th. That means we're about 2 months away from an announcement. Now, that's what I believe we're going to get here, is an announcement and not a release. The release will come later. The announcement of the Canon R3 in September, barring any catastrophe. Yeah, like component shortages or a worsening semiconductor shortage or anything like that. Well, here we are. We're 2 months away. Canon must have a pretty good idea of what they have in stock, what they're going to have in terms of numbers for sale. And the last thing I think they want to do is have what they had with the R5 is announce it, and it trickled out for months and months and months and months with such a huge supply shortage. But again, you know, this is 2021. We're getting used to this now. This is our second year of catastrophes. So the Canon R3 is supposed to be coming out or being announced in September, which is after the Olympics. And as Craig indicates, the hype machine should start getting into full gear as we get closer to that date. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, again, the R3 is really aimed at one particular use group, and that's people that like to take stills. And I'm talking about a lot of stills. We're talking about fast action, so motorsports, sports, like the Olympics that it's going to be following. Any sort of sports, any fast action, and even portraits. People like to shoot really fast when doing portraits. I'm not a stills photographer, so it's not my bag, and my bag is really video. And from a video perspective, the R3 has some pretty good video specs, but at a price rumored to be somewhere around $5,500 to $6,000, I don't really see the R3 being a videographer's dream camera. It isn't. It's for fast action photography, stills, sports, you know, motorsports, motorcycle racing, car racing, all that kind of stuff. And as you can see from all the specs that I put on the side here, it's a pretty decent camera. And when you compare it to the 1DX Mark III, it certainly has that camera beat in many ways. And Canon has said that, technically speaking, for now, the R3 is the flagship camera over the 1DX Mark III, at least once it is available for sale, at least until the R1 comes out. Now, the other piece of news I want to talk to you about tonight, and forgive me for the noise, what you're hearing, the cheering over there is from some kids playing in the backyard. They're very loud. It's like 6 or 7 houses down another street over, but their parents would rather have them outside yelling and screaming and ruining our lives than inside giving them headaches. Can't really blame them, can you? So you might hear a little bit from now and then, but I know that the Tascam DR10 Health does a really good job of focusing on what I'm saying and less so in the background. We've also got somebody doing lawn care over there. I thought with an impending rainstorm coming, I would have the backyard to myself without any noise. Anyhow, now let's get on to the Nikon Z9. The Nikon Z9 is Nikon's upcoming flagship camera, stills hybrid flagship camera. It's designed to take the place of the D6. It's going to be more advanced than the D6. And Nikon's already come out and made some announcements. So let's take a look at some of the announcements. Now, in terms of a sensor, it is going to have a stacked sensor, like the R3 is going to have a stacked sensor. It's going to have 8K video, like the R5 and like the Sony Alpha 1. Now, other things that Nikon has announced is that it's going to have a completely new image processing engine, and I'm not really surprised here. Now, one of the things that came out in the rumors is that it could have one of three sensors, and one is the 45 to 50 megapixel sensor, a 50 megapixel sensor, and a 60 megapixel sensor. Those are all plausible, and that's why I think this rumor makes sense. If they had said 80 or 90 megapixels, no, it doesn't make sense for a fast action camera, and that's what this is, like the R3. But what we're starting to see more in flagship high-end cameras, and even the Canon R5, which is not a flagship camera, it's a 5 series camera, has 8K video. The Sony Alpha 1, 8K video. The Z9, 8K video. And the R1, even though Canon hasn't made any announcement on it, it's a safe bet to say that it's going to have 8K video too. You might not be shooting an 8K video, but a lot of people are. And generally these are professionals, these are people who are working on productions, and 8K is becoming more of a thing. I've even started shooting 8K on a more regular basis. On my son's channel, Planet Liam, and please check it out and subscribe, I've been shooting quite a few videos in 8K. And I'm truly amazed at how much processing it takes for 8K over 4K, and I'm waiting till I get my new computer before I really sort of jump into 8K. And I was even thinking of producing some of my other videos in 8K, still export them in 4K, but have that 8K video so when I go back on it in several years, I've got a high detail master file. Anyhow, regardless of what I want to do, 8K is viewed as the industry as something that's becoming standard in consumer devices and broadcast devices. 4K and 8K are becoming the new standard, and even Canon recognizes this, as do others. For those that are looking for a stills-only camera, those days are done. Now, yes, there are some out there, and yes, the R3 is the closest to a stills-focused camera, but video isn't going anywhere, and if you produce a camera that's just focused on stills, it's not going to do nearly as well. Look at all the cameras that Canon put out in the last 5 years or so that really crippled video capabilities. I mean, we talk about overheating with the R5 now, but cropped 4K, I mean a 1.7 times crop in 4K, very soft 4K, not doing full sensor readout, not having IBIS, not having having contrast detect autofocus in 4K in some cameras. I mean, we've come a long way, and I think that acceleration in technology is going to increase. So I do think that the Nikon Z9 is going to be a terrific camera. I think it's going to be highly capable if you want to produce really amazing stills type work, you're doing sports, you're doing motorsports, any of that kind of stuff. I think this camera is going to work really well. Now, they haven't talked to how good the autofocus is going to be on motorcycles and car racing and that kind of stuff, but still, I think it's going to work very well. And in those cases, if the autofocus isn't as reliable, that's of course when you switch over to manual focus. With the right lens, you can get some really amazing shots. And what else does the Z9 have? Well, let's take a look here. I've got my trusty tablet here. So as far as 8K goes, 8K 30, 24, 25 frames per second, 4K 120. I'd really love to see 4K 180 or even 240, but I don't want to go to 240 or 180 frames per second if I lose detail. What's the point of going faster if you lose detail? Okay, that's a good point, yeah. So if you're trying to do some scientific stuff, you're trying to capture things, you want to see more of the movement, and you're willing to sacrifice some detail. So I could see that, but still 120 is pretty good. It's not as good as 240 though. New processor, it's going to have dual CF Express Type B cards, and I expect the same to happen in the R1 as well. And here's the thing with the R1. I think it's going to basically take the R5, whatever's in the R5, not what is ever in the R5, everything that's in the R5 from video and stills, and it's going to be better. So it might not be any faster in terms of frames per second. We might still have 30 frames per second. It will have reduced rolling shutter, but with a megapixel or sensor megapixel size of around 45 to 50 megapixels, that's huge to be able to crop in and have that detail and still shoot 30 frames per second. And video, to be able to shoot 8K video. Or perhaps they go with a 50 megapixel sensor like the Sony Alpha 1, and now you get 8.6K oversampled 8K. And what about RAW? Of course, I expect it'll shoot RAW as well, but will they give us RAW in 4K? Again, I've talked about this to death in other videos. The 1 series camera always has better video and stills than any other Canon camera, and usually it's just a little bit better than the 5 series. And so that's where I'm looking at this. Canon is very traditional. They kind of work with what works. They kind of go with what has worked in the past. And so I really see the R1 is going to have 8K. Good chance it'll have oversampled 8K, but will they increase the frames per second? Will they do something like 60 frames per second in 8K? And that would definitely get a lot of people's attention. But of course, overheating has to be reduced significantly or eliminated. And they can do that with proper thermal architecture and with a larger body. Now, I don't know if you guys are seeing this. I'm looking in my Ninja here and I don't see it. I'm moving my head. A rather large mosquito's just flown smack dab right into the lens. I'm going to leave it there because I'm going to forget what I was trying to say. But talking about the R1, again, my predictions are something like oversampled 8K video or 60 frames per second. And on the still side, you're going to have a larger sensor, so they're going to still keep it around 30 frames per second, but with a much bigger sensor. And it's going to be a powerful camera. But like that Mac Pro, it's way out of my league. It's way out of my reach. In Canada, that camera is going to cost around $10,000. And yes, I do have lenses. But again, $10,000. There's an awful lot I can use $10,000 towards, putting it toward my son's future education. Taking the family on a trip, or if I stay in country, a couple of trips, maybe 3 trips. And why do I really need it? No, not overheating, because I've got the Ninja 5. That really helps me with overheating. I'm not constantly looking at the time because I don't really have to worry about that anymore. And also battery life with a Ninja 5. The R5 hardly does any work. So why else would I need it? Well, not for 30 frames per second. Look, I don't even use the 20 frames per second in the R5. I'm a terrible photographer. You've seen some of my shots. I do get some great ones, but I miss a lot more than I want to because, well, video's my thing now. I really should try to get back into stills, but my wife with her iPhone can do it better and quicker. So I just let her handle the stills and I take care of the video. So that covers things. Let me just quickly wrap up. The R3, according to Canon rumors, from validated known sources, is September. We don't know the date, but it's September. The Nikon Z9 is going to be announced sometime around November or December. And this is where I think 2022 is going to be very interesting. The R1 we know very little about. It doesn't mean it couldn't be coming soon. Look at the R3. Nobody had any idea the R3 was coming out, and then boom, Canon said, by the way, look, here's a development announcement for it. So the R1, I wouldn't be surprised if it's coming in 2022, but I could also see 2023. The R3 satisfies that need for people who wanted a follow-up to the 1DX Mark III in a mirrorless body. And as far as video goes, the R5 does a very, very good job. It does a good job, really good job in stills. I wouldn't be surprised if they move up their timeline, just because we've got the Sony Alpha 1, we've got the Z9, and that would leave Canon without their 1 series. So I don't know, it's hard to see, but you know, I would think 2022 towards the middle of the year at the earliest, but I could see January 2023 as a most likely date. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. Please like this video and also subscribe, and take a look at my son's channel, Planet Liam. I'm still giving away prizes once we reach 30,000 subscribers. I'm giving away 2 Angelbird V90 128 gigabyte CFX SD cards and a card reader, as well as some Ulanzi LED lights. I almost forgot to mention the name there. I've been shooting so few videos lately that my brain is going to mush. But now I'm going to go inside. I'm a little cold right now, if you can believe that. It's dropped another degree to 62 degrees. And I want some peace and quiet. I don't know if you can hear them shouting. I'm sure that once I take it into edit, I'll pick up on it. But I think when I hear noises in the background here, it bothers me. It annoys me far more than actually what I hear when I take it into editing. But again, guys, I really do appreciate you tuning in, for supporting my channel, and for your comments. We'll talk again soon. Take care.